Introduction 1. Isaac has read a certain philosophy, studied a certain selection, seen thick black, and even passed the life sciences exam where he felt embarrassed to find a job without pursuing a PhD. He thinks he is a dragon with culture and ideas. Introduction 2. Having one's own thoughts is the key to giving birth to one's own divinity. Those who can become gods are great philosophers. When Dr. Green Dragon discovered this essence, he began to rebuild his own scientific philosophy system beyond the good and evil and camp. Will the gods become old as a result? Will a new era be imminent? Keywords of the novel. Dr. Green Dragon without pop-ups. Download the complete text of Dr. Green Dragon, and read the latest chapters of Dr. Green Dragon. Chapter 1. However, Long Mama has already seen through everything. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. However, Long Mama has already seen through everything, waha, my foolish and weak younger brother, accept reality. You eat and sleep all day, sleep and eat, even lazier than a pig. I exercise and fight all day, how could you be my opponent? Under the dragon nest. Altana waved her strong and powerful dragon wings, imposing herself from the sky, looking down at her little brother with all 4 feet facing up and revealing her belly, making a brazen mockery. As a green dragon that had just entered its juvenile stage, Altana had grown over 10 feet in length, and her limbs and dragon wings were so strong that compared to her foolish younger brother below, she was almost an age group thicker. Sometimes, Altana even felt that if they were both young dragons, the red dragon might not be as strong as her, even though she had never seen any other race of 5-colored dragons before. Thinking about it this way, she felt that her body was a bit light. As the most cunning member among the 5-colored dragons, and also as strong as the red dragon when I reach adulthood, Sylvia will definitely not be able to defeat me. At that time, her treasure trove, the young dragon's mouth cracked even wider, and saliva kept dripping. It's you who's stupid, your muscles are about to burst your brain. As soon as he saw Long Jia's expression, Isaac, who was showing his belly in admitting defeat, flipped over with a swoosh and swiftly crawled into the jungle like a mouse. Of course, he was muttering to Long Jia that she was foolish, but he didn't dare to say it on his lips. He just deliberately let out a mournful cry like a negative dog and said, I will come back again, I must win you next time. Isaac is also a young dragon, but he is not as distorted as Dragon's sister. As a standard green dragon, his limbs are slightly slender, with dark green scales covering his entire body. There is already a rudimentary spiny crown on his head, and his pupils are thin and vertical, as if he can see cunning light flickering inside. Of course, there is also a huge head that is disproportionate to his body size. He is about 9 feet long, and his head alone accounts for 1/3 of his appearance. However, this is not a distortion. The Green Dragon clan, including the vast majority of other dragons, tend to have excessively large heads and feet before entering their youth. As he swiftly penetrated into the jungle, Isaac was careful not to let his front paws land or collide with thorns and vines. There is a small patch of blood on his front paw. It's not him, his injuries are all on his head and back. This blood belongs to Altana, and it was only through his hard work that he finally managed to catch it. You think you won, but I didn't lose either. The young dragon's eyes showed a hint of success. The green dragon relies on its brain, muscles are such a thing, how important is a brain? Wait, when my research yields results, I will be more muscular than you. Altana did not pursue her foolish brother, who targeted her, but her goal was not below suppressing her swelling for a moment. She didn't look up at the dragon nest halfway up the mountain. As an adult, Long Mama is not someone she can provoke yet. Alas, it's still growing too slowly. Long Ma's treasure trove still needs to be stored there. Today's exercise task has not been completed yet. Should we find that ogre or go play with that fierce wild boar? Fluttering its wings a few times, the young dragon quickly drifted away. Deep in the dragon nest, Sylvia, who was entrenched in the treasure trove, slowly opened her eyes and looked towards the direction where the two young dragons were leaving, as if she could see outside from afar. In fact, she can indeed see it. As a standard adult green dragon, she is only half a step away from the legendary stage and has already awakened various supernatural abilities. One of these supernatural abilities, as long as she is in the nest, all birds and rodents around the nest will form a supernatural connection with her. Through their eyes, she has already seen the battle between the two offspring. Neither of these guys makes her worry-free. It goes without saying that if it weren't for her certainty, she would only have had a relationship with Merifez in those years, and she would have thought that this guy really had a red dragon bloodline. This guy can already attract her extra attention. The little one is not a good kid either. On the surface, he looks lazy and useless. He has never won a fight with the big one, persistently fighting, and at most, he only scratches through a little bit of the big one. However, Sylvia's eyes showed a sneer of having already seen through everything. Compared to her domineering and irritable eldest daughter, the youngest was the most classic green dragon, fully inheriting her excellent character, selfishness, cunning, and rebellion that sets her apart from other five-colored dragon races. Other five-colored dragons, once they fight, will inevitably have to win or lose with real bullets. However, green dragons are different. Green dragons are good at showing weakness and are good at purposefully retreating. Of course, this kind of showing weakness only occurs when facing opponents with similar strength, which is different from other five-colored dragons in terms of rebellious behavior. Little thought she was hiding well, but how could she possibly hide it from her? If she couldn't even see through a mere young dragon, wouldn't these over 100 years be in vain? Who has the qualification to be the queen of this thorny forest? The little one actually awakened his spell-like ability and gained the level of a spellcaster. Most importantly, he kept it a secret and never cast it in front of her or Iltana, even though he had already been severely beaten by Iltana several times. Green dragons are naturally magical creatures, but normally, most green dragons will not be able to awaken their spell-like abilities until their adolescence. Excellent ones, at least until their adolescence. Isaac can cast spells as soon as he enters his juvenile stage, even if it is only a level 0 spell, which is extremely rare. That is to say, both of these guys already have potential threats. Neither of them can be left. But we can't just let them leave like this. Over the years, I have put in too much effort for this family. Now that they have grown up, they should also have something in return. In almost the blink of an eye, Sylvia had already made a decision. The five-colored dragon is not a metal dragon. They never care about family or not. The green dragon has always been proud of its three virtues. The most cunning, the most selfish, and the most rebellious. In fact, if it weren't for raising offspring involving certain aspects of real name inheritance, she would have kicked out the two dragon cubs a long time ago. Because of these two guys, she hasn't even left the thorn forest in these years. Who knows how much her losses are? Of course, she didn't leave the thorn forest or plunder the surrounding areas. It wasn't because of her subtle care for the two dragon cubs that she was completely worried about her treasure trove, after all. There were two more people in the nest who also inherited the greedy heart. The death language tyrant. Worshipping the dragon cult. Including the lowly orcs of Belkrine. Is it the white crow or the sword song? In the eyes of Queen Thorn, countless conspiracies are jumping. The new book is on fire. Thank you for collecting and recommending it. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Dr. Green Dragon. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Dr. Green Dragon. It is reasonable for both Long Mama and Long Sister to think that they are too lazy. Deep in the dense mist-filled jungle. As soon as his front foot got rid of Long Jia, Isaac lazily crawled under the dense thorns. My eyes were closed, as if I was in a deep sleep, with only my slender tail swaying unconsciously, and the thorns around me also moving. But upon careful observation, it can be seen that these thorns have no contact with his body at all, as if consciously avoiding his tail. This is precisely the supernatural ability of the Green Dragon clan. To let vines, branches, and leaves collide with them, unless it's too fast for them to hide. The forest is naturally the territory of the Green Dragon. In terms of this supernatural ability, even natural races like wood elves and fairies are inferior to them. Dragon blood is naturally rich in magic, and through blood circulation, it transmits this magic to every part of the body, which may interact with the mysterious power in the brain, and even with the inheritance of real names. Following this train of thought, during my early dragon years, I had a spell-like ability, but Altana did not, so my blood magic concentration should be higher than hers. If analyzed in this way, the components of this chain structure are likely to be the material manifestation factors of magic. With his eyes closed, he seemed to be sleeping soundly, but Isaac occasionally murmured some sounds from his mouth. In his spiritual world, in a modern biological laboratory, a black-haired man is focused on observing and analyzing the latest blood samples, constantly comparing them with previous records and adding more data. The structure of dragon blood is completely different from the biological system and blood composition he previously studied, and all data needs to be experimented, observed, and analyzed by himself. However, although there is difficulty, it is not enough to leave him at a loss. How to say he is also a genuine green dragon doctor? Isaac is 5 years old this year. As a green dragon cub that has just passed its embryonic stage, he feels that he can definitely be considered cultured, thoughtful, and has more prospects. After all, he is a genuine PhD in biology, and he has spent more than 20 years solidly learning it step by step. That's right, over 20 years. Although he is only 5 years old, he has indeed received education for over 20 years. Over the years, starting from awakening his true name, accepting the inheritance of the true dragon, and breaking out of his shell, every time he falls asleep, he will integrate into another section of his life, a human race's life, and it is continuous. In his dream, he was like one with the human race, participating in every step from birth, enrollment, to growth. In his dream, he had read a certain philosophy, studied a certain selection, and seen a certain black person. With his passion, he was admitted to the hope of the new century, which is life science that is too embarrassed to submit a resume without pursuing a PhD. He also got a PhD and worked on a targeted drug project with mentor Daniel. However, some time ago, there were some problems. In an experiment with a white mouse, there was no clue. In his dream, his character suddenly changed and turned into that white mouse. Then, with a long syringe and a single injection, one can only watch helplessly as the little belly swells day by day, like something is about to burst out of it too terrifying. The first time, he woke up from his dream. Afterwards, his dream changed and he never entered that life again. Not long after, he began to enter a period of growth. I don't know if it's because he has been dreaming and learning for years, but when he entered the juvenile dragon stage, he actually awakened his spell-like ability in advance and gained the level of a spellcaster. Not only that. I don't know if it's because he has the level of a spellcaster. One time, while recalling what he learned in his dream and thinking about the laboratory he was studying with his mentor during his doctoral studies, a shocking scene appeared. In his mind, an unreal laboratory appeared, which was exactly the same configuration as the laboratory in his dream. Moreover, he was able to project into the image of Dr. Fong, the protagonist of his dream life. Through these days of experimentation, he has gradually summarized the patterns. The laboratory can not only project into it, but also bring real-life objects into it. Just projecting to the laboratory hardly consumes anything. However, if he wants to use laboratory equipment, especially those with high power, it will make him feel burdened. And if we want to bring in real objects, the burden is even greater. At the beginning of his attempt, he brought in a fist-sized stone, but it only lasted for a few minutes before his spirit could bear it anymore. The stone was immediately expelled. Now doing experiments, he only takes a drop of dragon blood every time to maintain as much time as possible and record more data. Even so, his experimental data is still intermittent, and a lot of time is repeatedly wasted on the early processing steps. After all, a drop of light black, slightly shimmering blood appeared in front of the green dragon without warning, but as if prepared, the green dragon spat out a syllable from its mouth, with its front paw pointing towards it. Before it could drip, an invisible energy lifted the blood and slowly floated in front of the green dragon claw. Spell-like ability. Level 0 Magic, Mage's Hand. The green dragon is a natural magical creature, and as long as it enters the corresponding age group, it can naturally master certain spells, but can only master certain ones. The number of spells they can master is very limited, perhaps related to their real name, dragon body structure, or both are indispensable. Their spells are more like a kind of ability, similar to sorcerers, but fundamentally different from their own construction or memory spells, so they are called spell-like abilities. Like Isaac, in the Inheritance of Information, there are only 5 level 0 spells that he can master, namely Acid Splash, Phantom Sound, Mage's Hand, Magic Techniques, and Boosting Resistance. He cannot master any other level 0 spells through learning, unless he works part-time as a mage. However, in terms of inherited memories, although the Green Dragon clan is naturally powerful, as long as they eat and sleep, they can eventually reach the top of the food chain. However, correspondingly, they have to work part-time and further improve their career level, which is relatively difficult, and even to some extent, it will affect the growth of the Dragon clan itself. Without personal experience, Isaac is currently unable to determine the essence of this experiential punishment, but it should be related to effects such as compatibility and exclusion, right? Taking the blood sample in front of him, Isaac grabbed another animal bone from underneath. This is the rib of a ferocious deer, of decent quality, barely able to withstand the corrosiveness of the green dragon's blood. However, looking at the small holes on the animal bone that he had dug out with his claws, there were little black bloodstains that had already dried up. As someone who is eager to learn and improve, it's really too difficult for me. Placing this drop of blood specimen into a new hole, the young dragon let out a long sigh, revealing the heaviness that this age should not have. As a studious and ambitious green dragon, he is really too difficult. There is only so much research time every day, and each time there is no equipment to properly preserve the blood samples, which requires him to retrieve fresh blood every time in order to conduct further research. And fresh blood. This is either to release one's own blood, or to have a fight with Long Jia Altana, to be precise, to be abused, finally getting a little blood, and having to quickly run away. The difficulty is not only that, having fresh blood and entering the laboratory, but also having to repeat the preparation steps of purification and centrifugation from scratch. He wasted too much time and energy on this. But there's no other way, as a young dragon sheltering under the wings of the Dragon Mother, he can't even get treasures like glasses and crystal dishes. Maybe it's in Long Ma's treasure trove, but Dragon Mother Sylvia is a typical green dragon. As the most cunning and selfish dragon among the 5 colored dragons, any creature that dares to approach the green dragon treasure, as long as it does not exceed its ability range, even her cubs have absolutely no reason to survive. In fact, let alone seeking treasure from Long Mama, as long as the siblings and Erlong show a little bit of something shining and be seen by Long Mama. Long Mama who has paid too much for the family needs some reasonable compensation. This has made them develop a habit from a young age of burying their collections far away from the dragon's nest. Under Sylvia's nose, it is never possible to accumulate true wealth. But now is not the time to leave. The surrounding area of Thorn Forest is not a stable place, so I need to be more stable. When there is significant progress in research that can significantly improve my life level, I will consider leaving. The first step in the research is on magic. Although there are some speculations now, more specimen data is still needed. If only we could get Sylvia's blood sample. In addition, we also need Little White Mice. The new book is out, thank you for collecting and recommending it. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Experimental Body. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Experimental Body. Isaac is not sure about the exact life level of Dragon Mother, but he has a rough idea. As an adult green dragon, Dragon Mother is definitely very close, even if not in the legendary level. If we could obtain her dragon blood data, it would undoubtedly greatly advance his research progress and even point out his next research direction. However, after pondering for a long time, he still shook his head. As the ruler of the Thorn Forest, Dragon Mother has no natural enemies here. If you want her to bleed a little, you must have a strong foreign enemy kill her. However, not to mention the strong ones who can compete with Dragon Mother, they are not something he can design now. When it comes to those moments, the first ones to suffer are probably young dragons like him and Dragon Sister. Be steady, step by step. I'm not Altana, so I shouldn't be kicked out quickly. First, find a suitable white mouse. Isaac's thoughts were spinning. The primary criterion for selecting a white mouse is to be able to adapt to the magic of dragon blood. Dog-headed people. Almost immediately, a name jumped out of the young dragon's mind. Although no giant dragon would acknowledge the claim that dog-headed humans are of dragon descent, it is undeniable that among the extremely large number of dog-headed humans scattered throughout countless dark regions, there have indeed been many dragon veins. For example, the chieftain of the Thorn Forest Doghead tribe, Kurara, a dark green winged doghead with a health level that is said to have exceeded level 10 and even stronger than Dragon Sister, possesses the power of the dragon vein. This also indirectly indicates that doghead humans should be able to adapt, at least to some extent, to dragon blood magic. However, after a moment of contemplation, Isaac's gaze furrowed slightly again. Doghead should be able to meet his experimental conditions, but if he could choose, the young dragon shook its head slowly. Although the dog-headed people are humble, they also possess a certain level of wisdom, and they are loyal servants of the Dragon Mother. Nakarala is also known as the first loyal dog of the Dragon Mother and is qualified to directly visit his queen in the dragon nest. If the experiment is conducted using a dog-headed person and progress is made, the changes in the experimental body may not be able to hide from some people, and therefore, may not be able to hide from Long Mama. He never wants to show his excellence in front of Long Mama, which often means nothing good. If possible, the best choice for a little white mouse should be one that lacks intelligence and is easy to control. In terms of body size, the smaller the better, so as to achieve faster results. So, snakes. Lizards. Or Isaac tried to recall the small animals he had seen before and had a slight connection with dragons, but no matter how he thought or recalled them, it seemed that, Suddenly, his gaze jumped and he slapped his paw on his forehead. Black under the light. It seems that he has overlooked a daily visible creature. Dragonfly. Sincere joy bloomed in the eyes. Related to dragons, without intelligence and small size, dragonflies perfectly meet the requirements of the experimental subjects, and they are not difficult to capture as they live in groups in dragon nests. Not only that, Isaac also thought of more. The birth of dragonflies should be related to the excrement of real dragons. From the perspective of dragon body structure and blood circulation, dragon urine is derived from dragon blood. This in turn indicates that there is indeed a mysterious magic in dragon blood, even if it is only the waste discharged after blood circulation. The concentration of magic is far lower than the blood itself, which can still give birth to creatures like dragonflies. The joy on the young dragon's face gradually became strange. He really can't do anything about Long Mama's blood, but he has great control over Long Mama's urine. During that period of life in my dream, a scientist discovered too many meaningful things in urine. Now, it's his turn. Of course, we cannot be complacent, continue to be low-key, continue to be cautious, and prioritize not attracting the attention of Long Mama. You can wait until Dragon Mom goes out to hunt before lightning strikes. No longer lazy, thinking everything right, Isaac quickly flipped over and ran towards the direction of the dragon nest. However, there was no return to the nest. Since entering the juvenile dragon stage, he rarely appears directly in front of his mother. Crawling in the jungle at the foot of the mountain, he began to take a nap as usual. Time slowly passes by. As the sun passed overhead and reached the top of the mountain, the shadow of the peak enveloped the jungle, and the young dragons in the jungle gradually developed a sense of hunger. However, known for being lazy, when lying down, what he lacks the most is patience. Physiological hunger period. When I'm hungry, Sylvia should probably be hunting. Isaac squinted his eyes and continued to sleep, leaving only a small corner of his eye to pay attention to the direction of the dragon's nest. After a while, a huge figure finally emerged. The whole body is emerald green, resembling the color of the forest. The body length is not less than 50 feet, but it does not appear bulky at all. The wingspan was astonishing, but as she flew up, the sound of sweeping through the air was extremely faint. Not Dragon Mom, who else can there be? Isaac didn't stare. Almost as soon as the figure of Dragon Mother appeared, his eyes immediately closed. He himself is a green dragon, and his keen perception of the Dragon Mother is clearly not to be underestimated. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He calmly counted in his heart, and only opened his eyes again when he reached 20. As expected, Long Mama's figure disappeared. Lightning strikes. With its wings fluttering, the young dragon's figure quickly rose into the air, pouncing into its nest in the blink of an eye, and immediately rushing towards its destination without stopping. Only when passing through a dark pit did it take a few more glances. No surprise, his vertical pupils keenly captured a few magical flashes from there. Dragon Mama really never relaxes her guard against the inner nest at any time. If he, or Dragon Sister, takes advantage of her absence to explore the depths of her inner nest and the roots of her treasure trove, there is no doubt that he will face her furious punishment. Unfortunately, Isaac withdrew his greed from the depths of his pupils and rushed non-stop into his destination. In just a moment, he ran out again and quickly re-entered the forest. Let's start with this. This is only number 001, this is only number 002. Under the same feeding conditions, first use 001 as the experimental subject, and then compare 002. After a lot of effort, Isaac finally used a vine to tie the two dragonflies to the tree like dogs. This dragonfly has a large and slender head, a ferocious mouthpiece, eyes as big as pearls, a dark green body, and a faint fragrance of chlorine gas, which is obviously highly toxic. However, green dragons are naturally immune to toxins, so this deadly poisonous fly for many creatures is purely a toy in their hands. Well, sometimes it may also become a defense tool for dragon nests. Two dragonflies were numbered separately, and Isaac thought for a moment, ignoring their struggles. He carefully pricked their tails with his claws and gently squeezed out a little green blood. As usual, first input their information into the database. Laboratory. With a sudden thought, the laboratory quickly emerged from within. Thank you for collecting and recommending. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Premonition. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Impressions. Time passes by day. With sufficient materials and experimental subjects, and the establishment of new databases, Isaac's research progress is also constantly advancing. Deep in the forest. On several towering ancient trees nearby, 4 dragonflies have already been tied up at the same time. Moreover, it is no longer 001 and 002, and the current numbering is 13.016. Experiment subject 013 was injected with a mixture of 1 unit of magic molecule and 20.7 units of equilibrium solution. The enhancement was significant, but infection still appeared at the injection site. Experiment subject 014 was injected with a mixed solution in a ratio of 1 to 20.9, with significant enhancement. There was infection at the injection site, but there were mild healing symptoms. Experiment subject 015 was injected with a mixed solution in a ratio of 1.31, with significant enhancement, mild infection at the injection site, and good healing. Experiment subject 016 was injected with a mixed solution in a ratio of 1.33, with visible enhancement and no obvious infection at the injection site. After completing the daily essential feeding, Isaac first measured the body length and wingspan of the dragonflies one by one, and after recording the data in the laboratory, he carefully observed their status. It can be seen that except for the severe infection on number 013, which is likely to be dedicated to science, the other three are still in good condition, especially 015 and 016. While fearing him, they opened their mouths at him as if issuing a warning. Isaac certainly wouldn't get used to them. The little white mice should have the gentleness of the little white mice. However, he did not awaken his fierce momentum, commonly known as dragon power, and the caster's level did not reach level 5, making it impossible to cast the suggestion spell. Therefore, he directly physically tamed it. He tightened the vine rope and pulled these two dragonflies together. He then controlled the force and bent his claws at the two little ones, bouncing them together. The little ones struggled desperately, hissing incessantly, but their ferocious mouthparts were completely unable to grasp the scales and claws of the young dragon. They were both anxious and afraid, and their blood-red eyes were engorged and swollen. On the other hand, numbers 013 and 014 quietly hid behind a tree, afraid to make any sound. Ha! At this moment, Isaac's gaze suddenly moved and he was about to fall on the head of number 015. The physical taming technique came to a halt, and a hint of surprise appeared in his cat-like pupils. I have to be surprised. I saw a small spray of green mist coming out of the mouthpiece of number 015. This little guy has actually awakened a supernatural ability, which is somewhat similar to the breathing of their green dragon clan. Strong emotional fluctuations, such as fear and impatience, can also promote evolution. Is it the influence of the central nervous system? Could it be that in a specific state, certain hormones are secreted by organs such as the pituitary gland or adrenal gland? Dr. Green Dragon believes that the evolution of number 015 has great research value. Extracting magic molecules from dragon blood and dragon urine is just to prove its effectiveness. After all, there is only so much that can be extracted, and the effect can be seen when used on small bodies like dragonflies. However, when used on green dragons themselves, the significance is not significant. His further goal is to find the synthetic origin of magic molecules, just like the dream life's erythropoietin. If he can find similar magic molecule generators and quantify their cultivation, then it will have real practical significance. The current state on the May 15th be an opportunity. Release a vine and release number 016. Without hesitation, he grabbed number 015 and skillfully used his claws to thrust and squeeze on its abdomen, quickly removing a little green blood. Is it related to the blood? Is it producing any hormones? Take advantage of its recent evolution and compare it with previous specimen data. If something unusual is really found, it may not be impossible to trace certain components in dragon blood dragon urine in the opposite direction through similar structures bringing the blood of dragonflies into the laboratory. Isaac casually released number 015 and crawled into the thorns, quickly entering a lazy state. When conducting research, time always flies by quickly. It seemed like a blink of an eye, and then it was more than 10 days later. As usual, after finishing his meal, Isaac began feeding his subjects. Due to new discoveries and advancements, his experimental subjects are also dedicating themselves to science one after another. Except for the evolved 015, which has been tenaciously maintained, other positions have been updated several times, and the latest number has reached 029. I don't know if it's due to evolution or occasional physical taming. Number 015 now has some professional skills like a little white mouse. When facing a doctor, if you want to be more gentle, just be more gentle. Even if it's for injections and blood collection, at most you can just shake a few times without any resistance from before. Even when the new experimental body is in place and not yet sensible, it will actively send signals to calm down those little brothers, pretending to be the first loyal fly under the doctor's command. So much so that Isaac was wondering if it really had that little bit of wisdom. However, regardless of whether it is necessary to continue the research or not, whether to tie it up or continue to tie it up, he is a grand green dragon. Do we still need to talk about why fly power cannot be achieved? Shaking his wings, he fluttered up and down beside him, flapping the 015 that looked like he could inject or donate blood at any time. Isaac grabbed a new experimental subject. The old guy has injected more times, and the changes are not as obvious. In comparison, the new one is still more tender. Immediately, number 015, which had just been photographed, approached the new experimental subject with a dog's leg and made a hissing sound, as if warning the younger brother. Now it has a body length of nearly 2 feet, 2 sizes larger than its younger brothers, with strong leadership and deterrence. Upon receiving its warning, the little brother, whose eyes were already congested, suddenly became less resistant. Isaac skillfully flicked his paw and pierced a small hole in the tough outer skin of the dragonfly. Then, with a self-made iron and bamboo needle, he slowly pushed the newly synthesized solvent from the laboratory in. During the injection process, suddenly his unexposed inner ear trembled slightly. The green dragon's keen sense was that in the distance, there seemed to be groups of creatures passing by, and the direction seemed to point towards the dragon's nest. While continuing to inject quietly, suspicion emerged in his heart. This is the central area of the thorn forest, with the presence of the dragon nest. The air here carries a pungent smell of chlorine, and normal creatures do not come in groups. Unless there is wisdom and a purpose. The injection was completed quickly, and Isaac first put away the needle and then released the experimental body. His eyes flickered a few times, speculating on the possible identity over there. Is it Long Ma's servant? Or those rumored adventurers? Is it even possible that it is a legendary dragon-slaying team? After a moment of contemplation, with the unique trekking steps of the green dragon, Isaac's figure flickered a few times before merging into the lush greenery of the forest. Then, the vines in front began to dodge silently, and the young dragon cautiously approached towards them. Quickly, in a situation where he was completely unaware, he looked at what was happening there. These are a group of short and small guys with dark brown scaly skin, 2 small horns on top of their heads, and tails straight like mice. They are not loyal servants of the dragon mother, but who else can there be? Isaac was slightly disappointed, but also curious. This group of dog-headed people has a population of over 100, and they don't look average. They are all wearing leather armor, with 2 hands, one holding a slingshot and the other holding a sharp short blade. This is not an ordinary configuration among dog-headed people. This should be the elite of the Thorn Forest Doghead tribe. Not only is this elite team extraordinary, walking at the front of the team, with dark green skin, a dog head like a crocodile, 2 horns tilted back, and many sharp spines extending from the head to the back, and a pair of bat wings growing on the back, the tall dog-head person is even more imposing. He is said to be a dog-headed person, perhaps a leading talent can better describe him. It is the chieftain of the 10 major clans of the Thorn Forest Doghead, the first loyal dog of the Dragon Mother, and the Dragon Vein Doghead Kurara. This guy, with so many elite dog-headed people, seems to be heading towards the dragon nest. Isaac no longer tracked, but his eyes changed and he began to ponder. He naturally didn't think that Kurala would want to be a dragon slayer, so they came here mostly because the Dragon Mother summoned them. And the ones summoned are all elite dog-headed people. What kind of battle does it require sufficient strength of cannon fodder? Is Sylvia going to make any big moves? Vaguely aware of this, the young dragon's expression suddenly changed. If there is a big move, it means the target is definitely not in the thorny forest. Not in the thorny forest means the distance is far away. Once the distance is far away, with Sylvia's virtue, she will rest assured to leave him, dragon sister, in the nest. Don't worry Sylvia, if she really stays away from the dragon nest, Isaac himself can't guarantee that he won't touch the inner nest under that dark pit. So, Sylvia must have ordered them to go on the expedition together. And I will take them on the expedition together. Isn't that just saying that they have grown up and can now serve the dragon mother? This is not a good thing. In the understanding of young dragons, this is often a prelude to being expelled from the dragon's nest. Shouldn't it be, just targeting Altana? I'm so cowardly. There was a hint of unease in the young dragon's eyes, but he was still prepared not to leave the nest. Thank you for collecting and recommending. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Set Off. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Set Off. Although everything was just speculation, the young dragon still felt a considerable amount of pressure in his heart. The Green Dragon clan is naturally at the top of the food chain, but they are still just young dragons. It's so dangerous outside. If he really wants to be kicked out of his house, where should he go? How will his current research continue? I need to make more preparations. If the speculation is true, no matter what big move Sylvia makes, I have to act even more timid than usual, highlighting Altana better. But if that's not enough. Isaac's eyes kept fluctuating as he began to weigh which direction he should go and where his destination should be in case he had to leave. Additionally, perhaps he could climb up to Sister Long, hold her thick thighs, and continue to push on. Upon reflection, the young dragon's eyes lit up. Not bad, at that critical moment, he really needs to climb up Dragon Sister. Not only does Long Jia like to charge ahead in combat, but more importantly, she can also provide resources for his research. Once he leaves here, his experimental subjects will not be supplemented and he must cultivate a population of dragonflies on his own. With the contribution of Dragon Sister, the cultivation efficiency can undoubtedly be doubled. Let's just wait and see, maybe it's because I've thought too much. Having returned to his original position, while Isaac was crawling and thinking, the experimental subject 015 also flew to his side with a dog's leg, and then learned from his appearance, surprisingly lying on the ground. Isaac naturally didn't fail to notice, but this time he didn't drive the dog leg away, instead he thought of more. It doesn't matter whether there are dog legs or not here with Longma. Even if there are more subordinates, it will attract Longma's special attention, which is not a good thing. But if you have to leave, this dog leg 015 may have a significant impact. After multiple experiments and enhancements, this guy has become an elite and even a leader in the dragonfly population. If he is truly tamed, he will be able to play an important role in assisting him in cultivating new dragonfly populations or commanding them to fight for him in the future. With this thought in mind, he poked out a dragon claw, bent it, and bounced it. Bang! 015 not only didn't hide, but also opened its mouth and made a hissing sound, even its tail quickly swaying. Coupled with the still tied rope, it was like a dog's leg. Isaac saw it in his eyes, but his heart moved again. If Dragon Mom really wants to cause trouble, these experimental subjects won't be fed by anyone. Will they be released then? I also happen to try this 015, is it really useful? Forget it, don't think much. The matter is not yet confirmed, maybe it's all my imagination. Just look at Long Mama's side. Just as I was about to stop thinking, I projected it into the laboratory to continue studying data. Over the forest, a magical roar suddenly spread from the direction of the dragon nest. Isaac's already squinted eyes suddenly widened. It was the roar of Long Mama, and the roar was filled with irresistible meaning. This is summoning him and Altana. It seems that his guess is most likely correct, he is not just brainwashing. As the matter approached, the young dragon became even more calm. Long Mama's call, he definitely can't hide, he can't hide either. So, let's follow the plan. The first step is to set off Sister Long. Get up. 015 on one side also raised his head. The wings were half folded and spread out. 015 quickly shook his wings and flew up. Upon seeing this, Green Dragon paused for a moment, his eyes flickering for a moment. Suddenly, he reached out his paw and grabbed 015, while the other paw flicked again, finally removing the long-held vine rope that had bound 015. In fact, with the current strength of 015's life, this vine rope may have long been unable to lock it. What truly locks it in is its own habits. Now that the confinement has been lifted, the green dragon has once again loosened its claws. It is like a wild horse that has broken free, soaring high with its wings in a wild earthquake. In just an instant, it is about to pass through the shade of trees and soar straight into the sky. Isaac stared at it, his body still motionless, but he wanted to see if this little thing's actions these days could really be disguised. Does it have such high intelligence? Cough. A mouthful of fragrant chlorine gas spewed out from the young dragon's throat. The sound was not loud, but number 015, flying rapidly above, was like a thunderbolt. With a sudden stop, its 2-foot-long body stopped at the treetop. Turning its head downwards, its blood-red eyes shone like jewels, and its wings trembled again. It turned back with even more dog legs than before, dancing up and down around the green dragon with a constant hissing sound. It seems that it can still be used. And you can use it now. Isaac finally smiled. Unlocking 015 at this moment is not only to see if it has been tamed, but also for another purpose. Taking this little guy with her, does Long Mama think I'm too bad, even looking for such a lowly little thing to play with? A cognition that young dragons always remember. The worse, the more stable. He must at least remain stable until he has achieved significant improvements in his life level through research, before he may consider leaving the nest voluntarily. With a dragon wing spread, Isaac finally rose into the sky. Behind him, number 015 also shook its wings to follow. It has to be said that although this dragonfly is small, its speed is really fast. Isaac waved his wings and, even when he was still far from the dragon's nest, made a desperate effort to fly. As a result, 015 not only kept up with him, but also managed to fly up and down to his side, leaving a lot of room for improvement. If we can focus on cultivating some experimental subjects with intelligence, even if they are only weakly intelligent, the construction of the Dragonfly Legion is also very promising. However, it is currently uncertain whether this change in 015 will be a random event. However, no matter what, the mass production of magic molecules must be completed as soon as possible, and the key is still to promote magic hormones. In thought, the dragon nest was already within reach. Isaac looked from a distance and the first thing he saw was naturally Long Mama. Long Mama is over 50 feet long, standing tall in front of the mountain peak with her head raised and wings folded. Her aura is fully open, and one dragon suppresses the entire scene, truly imposing. Sister Long has also returned. But she seemed unintelligent, only slightly lagging behind Long Mama by 1 or 2 steps, and learning more about Long Mama's posture. Looking down, it was like reviewing the monster army in front of her. Monster army, huh? Isaac has quickly flown in. As expected, there was indeed a big move. The 4 major combat forces under the command of the Dog-Head Elite, the Ogre family, the ET Monster, the Orc Warrior, and the Dragon Mother can be said to have gathered. But what really surprised the young dragon was a purple-robed priest on the right side of the Dragon Mother. Shadow Priest Stewart. A mysterious person from the Dragon Worship sect. Over the years, although Isaac had only seen this person twice, he could vaguely see that even Dragon Mother had some reservations about this person. Appearing again this time, did Long Mama summon her? Or was it because of her that Long Ma had the ability to point troops? After such a movement in his heart, there was a clear concern in his eyes. With his wings spread out, the young dragon glided and then spun half a circle in the air, flying towards Iltana from the side. However, Sister Monley Long has never looked up to her foolish younger brother. As soon as she saw him approaching, she immediately gave him a fierce look, with a message directly conveyed in her eyes. If you dare to come over, I dare to kick you away. Isaac quickly slammed the brakes, his wings flapping and flapping, and he finally managed to avoid rushing over. Then, with another embarrassed expression, she circled half a circle before falling behind Long Jie. Always following him closely, the 15th naturally took off as well. A useless guy. The structure of the giant dragon's pupils is naturally able to detect the slightest hint, so Sister Long naturally couldn't miss the dragonfly. Her eyes immediately showed mockery. Her foolish younger brother is really becoming increasingly incompetent. However, it seems that he cannot be blamed either. There's no way, with a strong sister like her around, it's normal to feel inferior. As she thought, Sister Long proudly straightened her chest. During this period of exercise, her physique seems to have become stronger again. Pretend to be real. The acting skills are really good. Seeing everything in her eyes, Long Mama continued to maintain her dignity, only sneering in her heart. If it weren't for the fact that she had already seen through his embarrassment, her son might have been deceived. This guy is already able to perform bluff with his actions. Unfortunately, you are performing on stage, and I am watching from outside. No matter how good your acting skills are, how can you hide it from my eyes? However, Long Ma did not expose it. Compared to exposing it now, she wanted to see how he would perform at that critical moment. If we expose it again at that time, she was looking forward to what her son would look like at that time. The son who arrived slowly finally took his place, and Long Mama also lowered her head slightly, looking majestically at her servant. No, at this moment, it should be her warrior. My most loyal, brave, and powerful warriors. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Listen to Long Mama's words. Learn from Long Mama. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Listening to Dragon Mom's words and learning from Dragon Mom under the dragon nest, by the nameless lake. The powerful elemental power surges out from the heart, forming an emerald green radiance that blooms in front of Dragon Mother's chest. From blood, bones, to scales, her upper body quickly begins to crystallize, and the radiance also becomes more and more brilliant. This is like a sign of semi-elemental transformation, and the powerful magic of the adult giant dragon is undoubtedly revealed at this moment. Strength is majesty, and against the backdrop of this brilliant radiance, the majesty of Dragon Mother has also reached its peak. Everyone, including the Shadow Priest, lowered their heads in awe of her. I'm glad that you haven't slackened off in these years' rest and recuperation. I can see your wildness, your madness, your blood, your desires all in my eyes. Now, it's time to release them all. I, the Queen of the Thorn Forest, the great, powerful, conquering, and wise King of the Green Dragon, will lead you to conquer hypocrisy, destroy goodness, and make the weak unworthy of possessing wealth. Ambition and strength are the ones who possess everything. Through this forest, over that mountain, the undead will be our vanguard, the orcs will be our support, and endless wealth awaits us to conquer. Bluff, this is the main skill of Green Dragon. The adult Dragon Mother has packaged it with dignity, commitment, honor, and benefits. At this moment, the monster army immediately became agitated, especially those wild orc warriors who would be recruited by the Dragon Mother. In addition to surrendering to the Dragon Mother's power, it was also because the Dragon Mother had promised to bring them bloody wars, violent conquests, and endless wealth. Now, finally, it is time to restart. The orc warriors raised their two-headed battle axes one by one, and they roared with passion, responding to the declaration of the Dragon Mother. I'm still far behind. Eltana let out a long breath and calmed down her swollen chest. She tried to hold her breath, learn from Long Mama, release her strength from her heart, and show her dignity, but young dragon, youth dragon, youth dragon, youth dragon, adult dragon, Sylvia and I are 4 age groups apart. Hey, I don't know how many more years we'll have to compete with her. So, I need to work even harder. The future Thorn Queen, no, is the common queen of the entire southern region. My legendary journey begins with this war. Long Jia felt unwilling in her heart, but she had more fighting spirit. Compared to her, Isaac behind him was far behind. He had even put his worries on his face, almost saying, "I'm still young, can I not go?" without saying anything. On the right side of Dragon Mother, in the palm of the Shadow Priest's hand, one eye quietly closed as she observed what she wanted to observe. As a senior member of the dragon worship cult, Start often interacts with evil dragons and is well versed in some of the fine traditions of the five-colored dragon. If nothing unexpected happens, these two young dragons are close to leaving their nest. It is necessary for her to evaluate whether she will continue to engage and how she will approach it in the future. Eltana has excellent potential, but she is competitive, strong, and aggressive. If she can smoothly reach her youth, no, perhaps only adolescence, she will definitely become a powerful dragon in the future. But the premise is that her personality can grow up to that time. Consider guiding her growth and further strengthening her competitiveness. As for Isaac, under his hood, Start's dark and blurry face was met with a puzzled gaze. At her level, there are already quite a few five-colored dragons she has encountered, but she has never seen anyone like this before. This, how to say, will be as bizarre as this. From her understanding and observation of information, it appears that this green dragon has little to no other activity except for hunting. It sleeps all day and has not even heard of the dragon's natural longing for treasures. The word lazy is a precise evaluation of him. If you want to add it again, then add the word cowardly. This is not like a five-colored dragon. The giant snake lizards in the foggy swamp next door are probably even more ferocious than it. But it has to be said that with such a personality, perhaps he will live for a long time. With the talent of the Green Dragon clan, if he lives long enough, he will eventually possess powerful power. Even now, it's not weak. The Green Dragon in its juvenile stage has a health level of 8, right? Level 8, this is also an absolute elite within the Bailong sect. However, whether she can have strong power after living for a long time or not is not what she wants to pay attention to. Worshipping the dragon cult, ordinary members worship the power of dragons and believe that dragons will eventually become the masters of the world. However, the true high level, especially those on the magical side, certainly also admire dragons and cooperate with their various actions. However, at least the vast majority of them, their ultimate goal is to dragon witches. No one can forcibly transform a giant dragon into a dragon witch unless the dragon actively cooperates. At that time, first try to get in touch and then try to instill ideas. If it still doesn't work. The Shadow Priest's gaze slowly fell silent in the darkness. Dragon Mom is Dragon Mom, there's still a lot I need to learn. Behind him, although Isaac still had a worried expression on his face, he was not Sister Long. He only paid attention to Mother Long's aura and strength. He was truly listening to Mother Long's declaration, understanding her language art, and learning her bluff technique. Through this forest, over that big mountain. So the goal should be the White Crow Duchy. But Long Ma doesn't think that warriors need to know who the enemy is. She simply needs warriors to obey her commands to fight, so there's no need to point it out. The undead are our vanguard. Is this a concept exchange? The undead should refer to the legendary witch who resides in the Zulus Mountains and has long been a rival to the White Crow Duchy. At most, Long Mama has made some agreements with him to start a war head-on, how could it possibly drive him to be the vanguard? Orcs are our backup. It seems that the orc tribe of Belkrine has also been persuaded to join the war. The alliance of the three evil forces is indeed a big move by Long Ma, but she doesn't know if there can be more mutual trust between these evil alliances. Well, I don't know if the dragon-worshipping sect has also intervened, how deeply they have intervened. Isaac nodded a bit. At this moment, there was no need to deliberately act timid. He was really worried. The Dragon Mother's big move was even bigger than he had anticipated, but the White Crow Duchy was not weak either. Otherwise, how could it have kept the legendary Lich Demon, Death Language Tyrant, outside the defense line of the Radiant Wall, for a long time? The reputation of the Oroden Knights, who had never been out in the Thorn Forest, was also heard of. This kind of large-scale war, he's just a little young dragon, my pride, Eltana of power and war, I have entrusted you with the most important task. Zaha and Ogden will be your deputies, and I believe you will not disappoint me. The ogre Zaha, Long Jie's long-standing rival, of course, was just accompanying her in a struggle. Ogden, on the other hand, was the leader of the Orc warriors and seemed to shoulder the heavy responsibility of connecting the Dragon Mother and the Orc tribes of Belkrine. These two sides are the real heavy forces under Long Ma's command. Being able to lead them, seeing Long take on this important task with pride, Isaac could only cheer for her in his heart. My foolish sister, this is a real challenge, please seek your own blessings. And you, my dearest child Isaac, you have also grown up, and you should have your own ambitions. Long Mama had already turned around and looked at her youngest son with an affectionate gaze. I don't need you to change overnight, but you need to learn from Altana, share your dear mother's worries, and contribute to this family. So, follow Altana and obey her orders. Isaac's schadenfreude suddenly came to an end, his pupils dilated and he shook his head urgently. No, my dearest mother, my great and powerful Queen of Thorns, I am willing to contribute to this family. I can assist Kurara and Easter, and I promise to complete the tasks of investigation and disturbance. No, believe me, you don't want to. Long Mama's eyes showed intimacy, encouragement, and determination. Facing this gaze, for a long time, the young dragon lowered its head from its heart. He really has a lot to learn. If bluffing is not successful, there are also forced bluffing. Whoever has a hard fist has a higher success rate in forcefully bluffing and deceiving. Thank you for the recommended collection. Once the contract is finalized, we will start 2 updates every day. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Long Jie is too difficult. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Sister Long is too difficult. The war imagined by Eltana was that she, the powerful and cruel green dragon princess, commanded an army of evil monsters, smashed fortresses, conquered humans, and seized countless treasures. So when she took on the heavy responsibility of Long Mama, she was extremely proud. But reality struck a heavy blow on her head. They are all useless reptiles. Pigs and beasts run faster than you. You deserve to live in underground caves. You deserve to have your wealth taken over by the human race. Tearing off a deer leg viciously, Altana looked up and swallowed it whole, while dragon curses kept spewing out from her throat. She is really too angry. I thought this war would be the beginning of her legendary dragon life, but now. I'm afraid it's just a joke. This is already the 3rd day. They haven't even walked out of the Thorn Forest yet. How dare such a guy call himself an elite? Is Sylvia really getting old? Why are all your subordinates crawling like this? Calm down, I think they will still follow your orders, but we can't let them march empty-bellied, can we? It can only be blamed that Sylvia is too greedy. She wants us to work hard and doesn't give us food. How can we get up quickly? Isaac lay on the side, weakly persuading Sister Long. At this point, he completely understood why Long Ma only summoned these elites. He is not sure how big the Thorn Forest is, but there are quite a few evil monsters lurking here. Not to mention anything else, it is not impossible for all 10 major clans to gather together, except for the loyal servants and dog-headed people of Longma. If it's a goblin, the number is even higher than that of a dog-headed person. But Dragon Mother only summoned 100 or so elite dog-headed humans, along with a family of ogres, a group of orc warriors, and a team of trolls. The total number of so-called monster armies was only about 200. Is it because Dragon Mom can't summon monsters? Obviously not. Isaac felt that she had considered everything well. Without providing military rations, the larger the monster army, the longer it will spend hunting during its march. If she gathers a monster army of tens of thousands, Isaac even suspects that this army will never leave the thorny forest unless Long Ma can provide enough military rations. However, if you want to extract military provisions from the mouth of the five-colored dragon, Isaac was shaking his head in his heart. From Long Mama's perspective, even though she can give zero, why should she squander her treasure and work hard through various means to prepare for it? She is synonymous with greed and selfishness, Green Dragon. Let her use empty words to deceive, she can perform perfectly. But let her dig out the treasure. A mouthful of poisonous mist sprays you to death. Don't think that robbery always succeeds. If it fails, wouldn't it be digging flesh in her heart? Moreover, even if the robbery is successful, what if the funds are not fully invested? Isaac cannot say that Long Ma's thinking is flawed. From the perspective of the vast majority of five-colored dragons, this is probably the most common nature. However, after all, he has received more than 20 years of human education and knows that in addition to nature, he also has strategic thinking and strategic investment. Throughout the history of dragons, those predecessors who were able to build a massive dragon empire must have been freed from the constraints of nature, right? Take it as a warning. After thinking a lot in his heart, he felt that he had also comprehended a lot. However, the greed and selfishness of the green dragon originated from the soul. Isaac even felt that there was a mysterious connection between this and his real name. Otherwise, why would the five-colored dragons of the same race have similar natures? Knowing is easy, but doing is difficult. Such a strong nature may not be able to overcome to that extent. Humph, no wonder Sylvia didn't show herself, saying she trusted me and handed over the army to me. It turned out she was pushing all the trouble onto me and hiding to enjoy the benefits. She's so shameless, so selfish, so cunning. Long Jia fiercely took another bite of deer meat, staring at the monsters who had returned from hunting in groups of 3 or 5 in the distance, and then fighting against each other for food. She felt that smoke was coming from her head and wanted to kill 10 with one paw to establish her power. Don't worry, rest assured. With Sylvia's rich experience, since she knows this is troublesome and blames you all, she must have considered our marching speed in advance. We will continue to move forward as usual, and we will definitely arrive at the appropriate time. However, Isaac continued to lie down, just saying, his eyes showing some hesitation. Just what? Sister Long turned her head and looked over. Sylvia's cunning and greed, you know it. I'm not worried about going too slow and not getting anything, I'm afraid this will become her excuse, I'm afraid of working hard and not getting anything in the end. As if describing himself as gloomy, the young dragon was listless. She dares. Altana almost jumped up and roared down her throat before being swallowed back by her. Then, her expression suddenly became gloomy. It seems that it's not impossible. Long Mama really dares and knows. Over the years, even without any excuses, Long Mama has been exploiting her a lot. Moreover, there is a reasonable reason for delaying the fighter jet this time. If that's the case, how should she resist? Is it a strike? Threatened by not joining the war again? Does Dragon Mom eat this set? Altana's face changed from sunny to cloudy. Which green dragon is not greedy? She couldn't accept the thought that the treasure she was desperately trying to grab would be taken by the dragon bully, even if it was just a thought, even if it hadn't happened yet. Isaac stole a glance at her, knowing that he had a plan in his mind. He didn't say much anymore and continued to be lethargic. He simply closed his eyes and fell asleep. From the moment he was convinced by his mother Long, he no longer held on to luck, and his departure from the nest had already entered the countdown. The most important reason why he hasn't run away yet is that he wants to walk with Long Jia and climb her thigh to get through the most difficult period. He was already confident in persuading Sister Long to leave. He also has a plan on how to climb up Dragon Sister. Now, there's only one thing left. Humans are a creative and visionary race, and maps are a treasure they will surely possess. Isaac pondered in his heart. Since he has decided to leave the nest, he naturally needs to determine a suitable place to build the nest. However, in these years, he has never left the thorn forest, and the situation around him can be said to be a bit dark. To clarify the destination, a map is undoubtedly the best way. 3 days later. The mountain referred to by Long Mama is finally within sight. Altana was almost so excited that she burst into tears. It was really difficult for her to lead these so-called elites, even though she had exhausted all her efforts and there were not many elites, there were still non-combat layoffs of no less than 10 people. For example, missing. No one knows whether these guys really lost their way and went missing, or if they were too timid to participate in the war, so they sneaked away, or maybe they were swallowed by some ferocious monsters. Even before stepping out of the thorny forest, it has reached this level. Altana has sworn that in the future, her subordinates will never be such Wuha elites. Now, everything has finally come to an end. Kerala, Easter, the task of investigation has been entrusted to you. Don't let me down, let Sylvia down. Suppressing the idea of leading everyone to charge together and be reckless, Altana, who had grown up a lot, learned from the tone of the dragon mother and gave orders to the doghead and the etrol. Reconnaissance was originally a task assigned to them by Long Mama. Now, she happened to change her name. The dragon vein dog head man and the etter monster leader looked at each other, but they couldn't refuse. They could only obey her orders and quickly dispersed with their own people. Thank you for collecting and recommending. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Yin Bi collided with Yin Bi. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Yin ratio meets Yin ratio. The defense line of the Radiant Wall spans across the Duchy of Sword Song and the Duchy of White Crow, and this Madeira Peak is also part of it. Not only are there hidden human outposts distributed within it, but behind the mountain peak, at the exit of the canyon, there should be a fortress called Edinburgh, which is also a hard rock to gnaw on. The leader of the Orc warriors, Ogden, has followed the Dragon Mother and invaded the White Crow Duchy more than once. He still has some understanding of the situation on this side of Mount Madeira. Knowing that both young dragons were participating in war for the first time, this barbarian warrior, known for his brutality, patiently introduced the situation here to Altana. The soldiers at Madeira Outpost are mostly elite members of the human army, including professionals, with warriors and wanderers being the most common. Warriors don't need to say much. If they collide with each other, they are nothing more than life and death. Wanderers are bad. These despicable guys are not only good at stealth and sneak attacks, but also set countless traps in the mountains and forests. Even with Carrara and Easter scouting and clearing ahead, we still need to pay extra attention when we move forward. At this point, the Orc warriors had already entered a state of alert, forming small teams in groups of 3 or 5, with blood-red eyes constantly scanning the surroundings. Even Isaac, who has other goals and always prioritizes safety and strength, has also increased his vigilance. In the past, dragons used to fight for prey, but now, this is truly entering the battlefield. His pupils slightly dilated, and the magic from his capillaries and blood seeped out faster, strengthening the dragon's innate dark vision. He concealed his voice again, his presence rapidly decreasing, and the monsters around him did not notice anything unusual. He had already merged into the shade of the forest. At this moment, perhaps only the ogre family remained carefree and indifferent, with their thick bellies and huge wooden sticks, they swaggered ahead. However, no one cares about them, as they lack intelligence, as long as they can obey orders and charge forward when it's time for battle. And it's also a good thing that they're walking ahead like this. Coincidentally attracting firepower, they may even be able to smash the traps that have not been cleared, as they have rough skin and thick flesh, and have a powerful regenerative self-healing ability. What about Edinburgh? Altana still cares more about the fortress. Madeira Outpost may be a bit troublesome, but it's just a bit. The fortress of Edinburgh is her target. Only by conquering it will there be countless treasures waiting for her to harvest. The core defenders of Edinburgh should still be the Hill Saints. Those who believe in the Hill Goddess are exceptionally strong in both strength and physique, making them a good opponent. Although orcs are violent, they still hold the most basic respect towards strong opponents. The Mountain Saint is undoubtedly a respectable opponent. Even the strongest armed order of the Oridan Knights on the Wall of Glory defense line was created with them as its core. This is a legendary armed force that even the Baroque governor has suffered several defeats, forcibly blocking their orcs in Belcrine and preventing them from advancing northward. There should still be casters in Edinburgh, it's difficult to determine their level and quantity. Additionally, there are heavy crossbows in the fortress. Ogden was speaking when suddenly his voice stopped. Almost at the same time, he, Altana, and Isaac, who was lurking in the shade of the forest, looked in unison towards a certain direction of the mountain forest. The barking of a dog-headed person. Just as it started, it immediately became a hole. This is, really encountered. Altana licked her suddenly slightly dry lips, and her body's first reaction was to spread her wings, and she had already flown over quickly. The body structure of the green dragon is naturally suitable for flying in the forest, especially during this juvenile dragon stage. Her body size has not yet grown, and she is simply more agile than a shadow leopard. There's no need to have subordinates, they're still so reckless. Isaac was shaking his head in his heart, but he actually liked Long Jie's temperament. After all, if he could run away, he would charge forward in the future immediately. He also passed by. Unlike Long Jie's straightforward approach, he is now hidden within the canopy, constantly darting from one canopy to another, agile and covert. What else could Ogden say? Apart from venting his frustrations in his heart, he could only wave his hand and make his barbarian warriors follow him in a hurry. Roar. It wasn't until then that the ogre finally realized. The ogre Zaha let out an angry roar and caught up with the orc ahead with a thud-thud. He has a large and bulky physique, but at the moment when he enters combat mode, he shows no signs of sluggishness. Several of his family members also kept up with him with a loud cry. The primitive animalistic and bloodthirsty nature surged, and these large, red eyes quickly charged forward. Even the orc warriors couldn't help but give way to their positions. Withdraw. We are dragging them down on the second line of defense. Seagull, go back to the fortress immediately and notify the knights that the dragon from the thorn forest is also coming. Amidst the ups and downs in the mountains and forests, Old Barry calmly made a judgment, but without hesitation, pulled the newcomer who impulsively caused trouble beside him and retreated. As the old captain of the sentry post, although he has been relatively stable and peaceful in recent years, he has never forgotten these evil monsters deep in the forest. The hatred between them are imprinted in their blood, and if there is more blood, it will never go out. Doghead people, and they are all elites. The ET monster crawling on the tree. And the roar of ogres. Everything is showing, that dragon is finally coming again. The first thing he can do now is to use layers of traps to drag down these monsters and give the fortress more reaction time. In his experience, as long as he can hold on for a period of time, these monsters will inevitably become chaotic for a while after hunger, and perhaps they can do even more then. Within the bushes. Easter's evil gaze coldly watched as these people retreated, with a paw caressing the pet giant spider, sending it a quiet message. As the most vengeful spider creature, he has already recognized one of the humans, the cunning guy who escaped from his claws and gave him an arrow back then. However, even so, he remained motionless and even watched coldly as two dog-headed people were wiped by another wanderer's throat, then startled all the monsters. As expected, humans retreated. Walking backwards on the tree, the leader of the Eder monster followed silently from afar like a ghost, occasionally leaving a piece of spider silk on the tree. But it was at this moment that a familiar aura appeared. Like a giant bat, the angry dragon-blooded dog-headed man whizzed past from the sky. A brainless guy. There was a hint of contempt in Easter's dark eyes, but at the same time, there was a hint of contradictory solemnity. Disdain is the belief that one is brainless. The heaviness is doghead people are also on their Etrol tribe's recipe. And this guy's momentum seems to have strengthened again. Has it been improved again? The thought is not yet finished, there is another howling sound. Similarly, from the air, their nominal leaders, who were brainless, rude, and not yet powerful enough, also chased after them. Easter shook his head lightly and decided not to take this route. He still walked backwards on the tree, ready to take a detour and, Suddenly, his heart skipped a beat, inspired by the dark vision and passive senses of the spider's eye, and he turned his head. Also in the canopy, a pair of dark green eyes met his dark spider eyes. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Agree to row together. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Agree to row together. The ET monster looks like a giant spider in human form. They have 2 pairs of giant claws, limbs like claws, and a belly even larger than that of ogres, which makes them look very bulky. However, this does not affect their dexterity in the slightest. In the forest, they are the best lurkers and the most patient hunters. Their abdomen can spray venomous spider silk, which is very tough and can even directly strangle prey. They are also skilled at weaving web traps with spider silk and enjoy raising evil carnivorous spider herds. In terms of race life level, they are no less powerful than ogres, and they have more brains. Under the command of Dragon Mother, if it weren't for the absolute advantage in the number of doghead people, if it weren't for Kurara awakening the power of the Dragon Clan, and if it weren't for Dragon Mother's most favored belief in Dragon Clan doghead people, the Adajon tribe might have been the top-ranked force. Of course, Easter himself may not care about these things. In fact, if it weren't for the power of the Dragon Mother overwhelming everything, they would have had to succumb to the Dragon Mother's feet. They might prefer to be a silent jungle killer. Their pursuit of wealth and desire is far inferior to other evil races. Recalling the racial characteristics of the Ether monster in his mind, seeing this guy again, even better at rowing than him, he was preparing to carry the direction of the impending battle on his back, and Isaac could only sigh for himself. Sure enough, he is still too young. There is really a lot he has learned and comprehended during this expedition. Longan and Spider's Eye were facing each other, and the scene was once silent to the point of embarrassment. Finally, at this moment, a series of roars came from afar, as if Altana and Kurara had encountered some trouble, and the strange atmosphere between the two was interrupted when Doghead and Ogre quickly approached from behind. There is a wanderer who is an old opponent. When he is alert, tracking him directly will only hit his trap in a series. Go around and cut him off. Easter drew a circle with his paw and explained it to the young dragon slightly. Of course, he definitely wouldn't say it. He was just sitting and watching those human beings wipe their throats and dog heads, with the aim of following them and finding a relatively safe route without disturbing them. Is that so? Isaac's eyes rolled and he immediately chose to believe him, without any doubt. He circled around and also paid attention to possible traps, whether Easter had time to cut off the human path. After all, listening to the roar from Sister Long's side, it is obvious that there is indeed trouble. Looking at Easter's leisurely and calm demeanor, how could he, who already had a mind for swimming, not believe him? Okay, let's go together and cut them off first. Isaac nodded decisively and added himself to the list of candidates who cut off the back line. Of course, the words were resolute, but the body remained motionless. He is waiting for Easter to clear the way. Who makes E.T. Monster a natural trap master, and E.T. is one of the best among them, while he is just a little dragon with insufficient survival experience. Pincer teeth opened and closed for a moment. Easter had intended to express a contemptuous expression, but in the end, he endured it. No matter how much he tried, this person was also a real dragon. Without further ado, as soon as he turned around, he crawled silently among the trees like a spider. Isaac followed suit and cautiously distanced himself from him. Siegel, leave the team and immediately return to the fortress. Joe, bow and arrow cover, keep an eye out for the sky. Larson, guard Joe, see you on the second line of defense. Old Barry had already fallen behind his teammates by more than 10 steps. His steps were eerie, as if he was heading left, then suddenly to the right. The dragon-blooded dog-headed man chasing him threw javelins several times, but he skillfully dodged them with his jumping steps. Suddenly, without turning his head back, he seemed to have a premonition. He rolled forward and slid out with his back against the ground. His right hand was lifted at the same time, and with a bang, 3 crossbow arrows shot out like venomous snakes. Altana, who rushed forward, only lifted her paws and covered her eyes, adding 3 wounds to her body. After all, she is just a young dragon, and the defense of the dragon scale is not enough to ignore the sharp weapon. Old Barry made several consecutive cuts on the ground with his left short sword. Wow! Hidden very well, from the top of ancient trees, a huge wooden fence immediately swept down. Bang! Just as she lifted her paws to protect her eyes, but also blocked her line of sight, Altana collided with the wooden fence. With a tremendous impact, several wooden fence posts were unexpectedly broken by the collision, and she was immediately knocked down. Dizziness and brain swelling. The young dragon struggled for a moment but couldn't immediately get up. Unfortunately. Old Barry straightened his back, bounced up, and ran away again. With a swoosh, a javelin plunged deep into his original position. There was no shock, and in the eyes of the wanderer, only a hint of regret flashed by. After all, a true dragon is a true dragon, and even young dragons cannot be easily killed by these traps. Unfortunately, there was also a dragon-blooded dog-headed man chasing after him at the same time, and he didn't have the opportunity to kill them in a series. Altana shook her head several times before finally regaining balance and getting up. She was in pain all over, but what really made her difficult to accept was the pride in her heart. This is her first encounter with humans. She finally experienced human cunning, human skills, and the resilience of the human race firsthand. Perhaps this is the root cause of being as powerful as a dragon mother, only able to claim the throne in the thorn forest, as powerful as a tyrant of the death language, blocked in the Zulus mountains, and unable to advance northward even a single step. Just this outpost is so difficult to deal with, how tough will the fortress behind the canyon be? However, Altana never knew what discouragement was. The more difficult the enemy was to deal with, the stronger her fighting spirit would be aroused. In terms of power, I am definitely above him. I just lack experience and skills. Real combat is not just about brute force. I am a green dragon, and I should also use wisdom. Their traps are mostly within the forest, if I were to come from above. However, above the forest, the line of sight will be restricted. But I can detour, even ambush them in reverse. Altana felt that she had made progress again, and the progress was not small. The battle has just begun. With a roar, disregarding the pain in her body, she rose up again into the sky. Humble crawler, I will tear you all apart. The roaring of Long Jia and Kerala kept coming and going, which surprised Isaac a bit. At this moment, he really believed Easter's words. Being able to make Long Jia and Kerala suffer continuously like this, the human race over there was indeed a tough nut to crack. However, he didn't put too much effort into it. He just followed Easter like a stroll in the woods, watching this humanoid spider leave some marks on the tree with its silk from time to time, and deftly avoid some traps, making him a perfect jungle predator. Thanks to the high efficiency of the ET monster leader, it didn't take them long to actually detour to the front of the dragon sister and others. And ahead of them, there were 3 or 4 people running away in a hurry. Don't take action. While staying hidden, follow them far away and find the safest route. Easter's voice was lowered, I'm keeping an eye on the front, you keep an eye on the back and the surroundings. That old opponent should be involved in the back, but sooner or later they will catch up and snipe him at the right time. Isaac nodded in agreement and deeply comforted it in his heart. He was only here to row the water, and he thought it was also a companion. Sniper the Wanderer. With the professional characteristics of a wanderer, there may not be much effect in sniping, such as agile movements, intuitive evasion, and reflexive evasion. How about suddenly, Isaac's heart twitched and his eyes lit up. Starting from Friday, there will be 2 shifts every day, end of this chapter. Chapter 10. A Small Spell. Great Effect. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Small Spells and Great Effects. Old Barry's footsteps were uncertain as he ran desperately, sometimes using trees to cover his vision behind him, sometimes as if he was about to launch a trap, alerting the pursuers, but in the blink of an eye, he ran away again. His chest was heaving violently, his breathing was rapid and hot, as if a flame was burning in his heart, his blood was boiling, and his body and mind were all in a state of excitement. However, despite years of war, his spirit remained calm despite his high spirits. I can't withstand it anymore. We have to withdraw. Larson and his team should have retreated to the second line of defense, and the Sentinel brothers must also be gathering. Just over there, settle it with them. In Old Barry's eyes, there was a hidden killing intent. This young dragon must be solved. In fact, at the beginning, he could still use his geographical advantage and various traps to bring a lot of trouble, even damage, to these 2 chasing monsters. But as this young dragon began to change its combat style, no longer passively following and chasing, began to detour, flank, ambush, and became more and more experienced, he began to encounter real crises. If it weren't for his familiarity with this mountain forest and his extraordinary state, he might have fallen under the claws of these 2 monsters. This young dragon's growth is too fast. If we don't solve it now, in time, it will definitely be a big trouble. So, even if we make some sacrifices, we must. With a sudden jump in his eyes, he was already running forward quickly. With a sharp reflex, he bounced off and rolled his entire body to the side, directly diving into a thicket of trees. During the process, he didn't forget to raise his hand, and a crossbow hidden under his wrist was shot out with a poisonous arrow. The body still did not lose balance, only flipped in the right direction and continued to sprint. In front of his original position, Altana pounced from the tree. Although she pounced again, this time she was not hit by a crossbow arrow again. The dragon's wings trembled, although not agile, but with a full momentum, she returned to the crown of the tree. Kalara, the dog-headed man, swept past from below, like a shadow following, continuing to lock onto the wanderer. At this point in the pursuit, they were already full of killing intent, unable to stop without tearing up the wanderers. On the other side, although orcs and dogheads are also constantly advancing, the endless traps on the jungle ground make them unable to speed up at all. Only a few ET monsters, after discovering the spider silk imprint left by Este, quickly pushed forward from the tree. 9 human sentinels. Enlarging his pupils and enhancing his dark vision, Isaac lurks in the shade of trees, counting human sentinels one by one with his gaze. These sentinels have already begun to ambush. 2 archers carrying long bows are climbing the tree. A few people holding short swords began to hide. They should all be wanderers. There are several more wearing armor, wielding swords and shields, and one of them is a heavily armored sword and shield warrior who is out of place with the surrounding environment. This should be their outpost. With judgment in mind, Isaac began to quietly retreat as he realized that Easter was also retreating. Their personality determines that they are not solitary and eccentric. Since they have found a relatively safe route and detected the ambush there, they naturally will not go to outdo the crowd. Wait for the main troops to follow, then level up. And they also need to make time for that person to prepare some welcome ceremonies. Quickly withdrew from the view range of the sentry post. Isaac continued to hide, but Easter began to explore nearby traps and trigger them. One on this side, one on that side. Most of them were directly ignored by him, but there were also a few who, after hanging a spider web and carefully observing it, secretly sprayed a piece of spider silk from his abdomen. The old opponent was being chased by Kerala and the nominal leader, and his first consideration was obviously being able to target traps in the air. After a while of preparation, Easter climbed back into the bushes and patiently lurked. This guy is also a talent, no, he's a weirdo. Isaac had a strange look in his eyes. He followed Easter almost the whole time, and it has to be said that this bulky and ugly humanoid spider monster really impressed him. Patient, careful, this guy is simply a perfect lone killer. Long Ma's subordinates also have real weird talents. Unfortunately, a hint of regret. Unfortunately, he is not qualified to subdue this level of monster now, especially since it is still under the command of Dragon Mother. Forget it. Rice is taken one bite at a time, and the giant dragon is an older age group. First, end this battle, then kidnap the dragon sister, and then start from the dragonfly population, gradually cultivate and grow. When that happens, I don't have to be so timid anymore. Stop thinking, Isaac also patiently lurks. Although Easter is a perfect jungle killer, at least in terms of patience, the young dragon feels that he will never be inferior to it. At this moment, the jungle is silent, and the birds have already been startled away by the sudden outbreak of tension, and the sound of insects cannot be heard. So, when there is an abnormal sound coming rapidly from afar, it becomes very prominent. Here we go. Isaac heard Long Jie's roar, but his heart remained calm and he only imagined himself as a dead wood. That's right, he's just a piece of wood. Just leave the hands-on work to a professional, didn't Easter add good material to the trap? At most, if there is a chance, he can help Easter a little more and facilitate their old opponent's real confrontation. When the time comes, there will be Este's ambush in front, followed by Long Jie and Kerala's pursuit. If the Wanderer is allowed to escape, then he will have to sit idly by. Thoughts flowed slowly like flowing water, and the human figure finally appeared. Isaac immediately averted his gaze. From Long Mama, he learned the experience of not observing certain creatures with extremely sensitive perception directly with his eyes, as this can trigger intuitive reactions. The little residual light absorbed by his pupils patiently calculated the trajectory of human movement through the shade of trees. Then he quickly realized that no wonder Long Jie and Kulala teamed up and couldn't catch this guy alive or dead. This guy's footsteps are too erratic, and the changes in direction are almost at will. He can't even grasp the budget of the movement trajectory at all. No wonder earlier, Easter gave up the pursuit directly. This human is indeed a big trouble. Now, it's up to him whether he will touch Estega's bait. Wow! Above the forest, Sister Long suddenly rushed down and a cone of green mist erupted. Old Barry deftly moved his body, wielding his short sword as he swung through the grass, as if about to launch a trap. This made Long Jie, who was preparing to continuously spray poisonous mist, realize that although she didn't stop breathing, her wings had already begun to expand. But it was also a fake action. In the moment when Long Jie's breath slightly stopped, Old Barry had already rolled out with a low body, extremely concealed, and his short sword finally truly swung into the grass. The first moment was a fake action, and the second moment became real again. No matter how fast Long Jie's reaction was, she couldn't take it anymore. Whoosh! 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 A series of javelins were rapidly ejected from the jungle. However, before they could hit Dragon's sister, Old Ba suddenly changed his color. Stickiness. Spider web. Is it that monster? Almost in response to his thoughts, a faint sound of spider silk spurting appeared in the nearby jungle. Instinctive lightning reaction, Old Barry kicked the ground hard and shook his body agilely. Surprisingly, he escaped his shell like a cicada and bounced towards the jungle on the other side, leaving only a piece of clothing stuck by spider silk in place. At this moment, Isaac's gaze finally passed, with a hint of pride in his eyes. He is still young after all, not yet at the age when his joy and anger are completely expressionless, and he is not alarmed by any indulgence or humiliation. In the direction that old Barry bounced towards, he was greeted by the spider silk spurt of Esther's big pang. Spell-like ability. Level 0 Magic Illusion Sound Spell. Create and simulate some sounds without any killing power. However, sometimes even magic can have a significant impact. There is one more shift this afternoon. End of this chapter.